and warm welcome to all of you to this highly anticipated two-day national conference being organized by National Education Policy, nowadays popularly known as NEP Cell of the University of Kashmir. It's indeed a privilege to stand before you and speak on this important event that promises to be a platform for insightful discussions, sharing of ideas and setting up meaningful course of action for the future of education in our nation. Education is the cornerstone of progress and the key to unlocking a nation's full potential. It shapes the minds of our future leaders, innovators, and citizens. The National Education Policy, often referred as the NEP, is a critical document that lays the foundation for the transformation of our education system. The NEP, which was recently unveiled, represents a monumental shift in our approach to education. It provides a comprehensive roadmap that envisions a more holistic, flexible, and inclusive education system for our nation. It was approved by the Union Cabinet of India in July 2020, making it the first major and significant policy update. It acknowledged the importance of promoting critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills. Our education system should not just be about rote memorization, but should foster the development of students' well-rounded, analytical, and innovative mind. This is crucial in preparing our students for challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. The NEP also addresses the need for flexibility and choice in education. It encourages multidisciplinary learning, allowing students to choose from a wide range of subjects and tailor their education to their interests and aptitudes. This approach not only promotes a more engaged and motivated students, but also aligns with the diverse needs of our society. University of Kashmir, with 12 faculties, 47 academic departments, 21 centers, 75 affiliated colleges in Kashmir division, has been committed to create opportunities for higher education for the students of the world in general and those of Kashmir in particular. It forms a community based upon the valued relationships among its all stakeholders. University of Kashmir has been able to take the lead in implementing the NEP 2020 in UT of J&K, the first place in the country to do so. Pertinently, University ordered the authorization of adoption of NEP 2020 for undergraduate programs from the academic session 2022. At the same time, the University in general and NEP Cell in particular is currently engaged in making preparations and all that it takes to ensure successful implementation of NEP at PG level as well. To ensure the implementation of NEP 2020, the University established NEP Cell in the month of March 2022 with a role to coordinating, monitoring and facilitating the various aspects of NEP implementation. Very recently, the cell conducted an orientation cum awareness program on the National Education Policy 2020 for principals of Degree College of Kashmir, deliberating on key aspects which included institutional preparedness for NEP 2020, curriculum, infrastructure and manpower, operational structure of NEP 2020, multiple entry and exit in academic programs, National Academic Depository, Academic Bank of Credits, and introduction to SOIM and floating of MOOCs. The NEP Cell at University of Kashmir has been working to ensure that the principles and goals of NEP 2020 are effectively realized at the institutional level. Organizing this two-day national conference on national education policy from November 22 to 23rd on the theme National Education Policy 2020 and Higher Education, Implementation, Accomplishments and Road Ahead at University of Kashmir is excellent opportunity to bring together educators, policymakers, experts and stakeholders to discuss and deliberate on the implementation and impact of NEP with reference to its success, difficulties, their possible solutions and challenges ahead. Over the next 2 days, we will be delving deep into the various aspects of NEP that include understanding NEP 2020 and its implications, curriculum and credit framework reforms, quality enhancements and global standards, faculty development and student-centric approach, regulatory reforms and policy implementation, impact assessment and future prospects, digital technology and NEP implementation, design your degree and institutional development plan, that's IDP. We have gathered here experts, educators, policymakers, stakeholders from diverse backgrounds, all with a common goal to understand, dissect, and deliberate on the implications and opportunities offered by NEP. We have received as many as 73 papers from approximately 200 contributors, of which 15 are 15 in online and 58 are to present in offline mode. A response beyond our expectation. We have contributors from places like Assam, Greater Noida, UP, Punjab, Haryana, Jammu, Kutwa, Tamil Nadu, Gelhot, and all parts of Kashmir, and a few papers are from Bangladesh. The conference is an opportunity for all of us to reflect upon the transformative potential of the NEP. It encourages us to rethink our approach to education, to reimagine the curriculum, teaching methods, and assessment systems. It emphasizes the importance of holistic and multidisciplinary education and fosters a spirit of creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving among our students. The conference is not just about theoretical discussions. It is also about practical solutions, actionable strategies, and collaborations. We hope that the insights gained here will lead to the development of concrete plans and policies at the institutional level.
I believe that though NEP was announced almost 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, there is a need for unraveling the rationale behind the NEP so that the success of any policy is dependent crucially on the implementation. And implementation needs our motivation and commitment, and at the same time we should feel convinced about what we are doing. So though some of the points have been mentioned by Professor Khurshid and Professor Masudi, and of course Professor Nisar, I would still like to go over the rationale behind the NEP. The national education policy has been designed and very well crafted based on a very careful assessment of the constraints and the challenges that our higher education system is faced with. So, in order to understand the rationale, we must understand the draft NEP 2019, how the challenges were diagnosed, so that we can see that how the various recommendations have been made. The second, the NEP is also trying to address the emerging challenges that our Indian economy is faced with. The most important challenge is the underemployment and the graduate employment among the youths on one hand, and on the other, there has been a rapid progress, the rapid development in the sphere of technology, particularly after the introduction of AI. So there has to be a match between the higher education system and the job market and the need of the economy. So in a way, the national education policy, as I can see, being a student of economics, is also an economic policy. And the third major objective would be to situate India in the global map of knowledge generation, because the internationalization has been given some importance in the entire policy document. What are the challenges that have been pointed out? They're very important for us to understand the challenges, so that therefore you can see the linkage between the challenges identified and the recommendations. These are some of the points that I am trying to mention from the draft 2019 NEP. There are too many higher education institutions. The size of the higher education institutions are very small and of mostly substandard quality. And all these factors led to the suboptimal utilization of the resources, human, financial, and physical. If we understand how does a university or a college function, you will see that the infrastructure is best utilized only when the teachers and the students are dedicated and they are utilizing our time. So without time, you cannot ensure utilization of the infrastructure. There is a lack of vibrancy, there is a lack of enthusiasm among the teachers and the students, and there is a failure of the regulation. Micromanagement has been very stifling for the teachers to innovate in teaching and research. These are very serious remarks made in the draft 2019. The faculty have indulged in unethical practices. There is a lack of compliance. Regulation is one reason, but also noted is the proliferation of the fake journals, that we are publishing papers, but the published papers are not often of very good quality. In the institution, there is an inspectorial regime, there are vacant faculty positions, inadequate infrastructure, and the skill education is very low. And the other point the draft mentioned is about the commercialization, which is inimical to the quality of education. And we have had nearly jobless growth, increasing AI use of the artificial intelligence and the technology, and the challenge is to raise the GER to the level of 50%. Now, given these challenges, you will see that our gross enrollment rate has to be raised to 50% by 2035, from the existing 27-28% or so, even 30%. And when the public funding for education is unlikely to be raised in the near future to achieve this particular target, we must understand how to raise this gross enrollment ratio. We need to give flexibility to the students to choose their courses. As Professor Masudi rightly mentioned, that the major objective would be to give the students their own life trajectories. And in 2020, when NEP was announced after the first wave of COVID-19, all of us were struggling to wriggle out of this crisis triggered by the COVID-19. This introduction of IT brought about a major change in the way we teach in the classroom. So what happened? Teaching is a service which requires the proximity between the teachers and the students. The moment we shifted to the online teaching, what happened? Our classroom potentially became a global classroom, because anybody from anywhere in the country, even potentially anywhere from the global, could attend the class. And once the lectures delivered are recorded, digitally recorded, this very service is transformed into a commodity. That means we can now have asynchronous teaching learning. That means if you miss the class, you can again attend the class, the way we listen to the movies and listen to the various songs in the YouTube and other challenges. That means this introduction of the online teaching completely revisited our concept of space and time in the university sphere. Now, what exactly is NEP trying to do? NEP is trying to do what education tries to do for each one of us. Education does two things, broadly speaking. One, to impart skill so that we can fend for ourselves, we can earn our livelihood, which is in conformity with the demand for skill emanating from the growth of the economy. And the second, education brings about a transformation in us, what is called self-transformation, which has been recognized in the literature, and all of us understand that given the diversity of the country, given the inequalities of the country that we are faced with, this self-transformation of the individual students are extremely crucial to ensure the democratic functioning of the institutions, to restore order in the society, to maintain order in the society. And this conduct of the young generation, or the students as a whole, is extremely crucial for an inclusive growth. So there is a good deal of importance on this technology. There's a good deal of focus on the leadership, which has to be strong and assertive, and the public funding. It is good that the NEP has recognized that higher education is a quasi-public good. That means there's a private and the public both have role to play in the higher education, and for education as a whole, the budget has to be raised from the existing 4.3% of GDP to around 6% of GDP. So this is the overall, the structure, the objective of NEP, all of us are completely aware of. And let us now get into what are the specific recommendations and how they're hanging together. The most important aspect of one is the ABC, which I will come to it a little later. And the second aspect is to how to reinvigorate or the revamp the institutional functioning. Because the quality depends on what we do in the classroom and in the lab. That is as simple as this. So how the university governance structure is being restructured, is going to be restructured, that's a major policy challenge. Now here, there is a one major policy recommendation of NEP, which I like very much, is the very concept of institutional development plan. See, how to make the faculty deliver, that has been the major concern world over. I mean, it started from the Adam Smith 1776 in our Wealth of Nations, to many scholars have all the time reported that public funded institutions have failed to deliver to their best potential. So how to get the best out of us is the major challenge of the policymakers, because there is no technology for us. There is no technology to ensure the conversion of input to the output. It all depends on our motivation, our commitment. Now, in the institutional development plan in the NEP, it envisages that the students, the teachers, and the administrative staff, there's one major recommendation, and the administrative staff, all of us are supposed to sit together and plan for the future. So now, in a way, it is going to foster the collegiality that exists within a university system and a sense of belongingness that we are working together. This is a shared governance. And university has to set a mission, and that mission has to be achieved by all the stakeholders in the university system. So we have to be strategic. There is a need for the leader. And in fact, all the students and the teachers have to be leaders in your respective field. But this strategizing on the part of the university has to be in a field which is very competitive. It is going to be competitive because the students have been now given the mobility to choose courses across the institution. And for funding, I think that we have to also compete. Leadership is very, very important, and you know the university governance, the major challenge of governance is that there is a vertical. Vice Chancellor all the way to the head of the department is a vertical, and at the horizontal level, we the teachers also are very keen to exercise our autonomy in teaching and research. So very often we find there is a clash between the vertical and the horizontal. And this is where the leadership comes a very, very important role to play in the revisiting or in the university system. There is also an important recommendation here, the fast track system. The faculty, right now we are all regulated by the UGC regulation, PBAS, API kind of system. Now, NEP is suggesting that those faculty who are doing exceedingly well, they have to be recognized and rewarded. So they might have a separate fast track system for their promotion. There is a need for the financial probity. Transparency is very important for the good governance, and this is expected to eliminate the possible malpractices in financial accounting. Because very often it is indulged mainly in the private sector that they play a game with the accounting, and so the budget that they have would not truly reveal the kind of malpractices that they indulge. And this is very important, that the moment the transparency is there is a good governance, and we become immediately accountable to the society. And the regulation has to be light but tight. This has been a major concern for the NEP, light but tight in the sense that there will be few provisions of regulation we need to comply with, but they will be tightly enforced. So that earlier they said that regulation was very suffocating, was very stifling, and that has to be overcome. Now, there has to be a governance in the sense of the funding, as I said. I'm not going to elaborate on some of these things which are in the offing. I'm not too sure how they are going to be implemented in the future. But the Higher Education Grants Council and the NRF will play a major role in allocating funds for the universities. But overall, what is happening, there is a shift from the input-based funding to the output-based funding, so that we at the universities are made accountable to the funding agency very directly. The idea is that if you deliver, you will get more funding. If you fail to deliver, then possibly we'll have a tougher time. And that is why this implementation of NEP and our energy that has to be put into the implementation is very, very important. Now, National Research Fund, I'm not going to talk about it, but some of the things that I have read in the paper and from the draft, it is clear that the private sector is going to play a very important role. And why? Because our research is going to be geared towards the need for the nation, and that is very, very important. So there has to be the job and the relevance of the research. Both are important, and that is why there is an attempt to bring in more private funding into the university system to fund research. Now, this entire higher education system is being restructured. At the top of it, we have Higher Education Commission of India, and this is supported by the 4 pillars. One is the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, National Accreditation Council, Higher Education Grants Council, and the General Education Council. I'm not going to go into the details of some of these, but they are very important because right now there is UGC, regulation and funding being put together. So we are going to separate regulation from funding, and then we have the National Accreditation Council, the NAC will become NAC, and then there will be General Education Council. Now, what is happening to the overall system? As rightly pointed out, the overall system is being tackled from both the sides. You have one side the students, and they are going to be given the autonomy to choose the courses, to choose the space, the duration of their study. So the choice of the courses, the basket has been widened, and the implementation problem, we have already pointed out, sir. But this implementation problem, we are all struggling that, how to make it more relevant, how to recognize the credit transfer, all these points are being dealt with. We are all facing problem at various levels in various universities. But the thing is that the students are now given the freedom to choose the courses to build up their own life trajectory. So what happens in education when the students take admission in particular department, they get trapped. I'm using the word, they get trapped by what we offer. So they are now being liberated in a way that, you take our courses at the same time, you can choose your own courses outside the major discipline. You can even choose the discipline-based course, skill-based courses. You are talking about relevance. Now that is also a very contestable issue, that whether the relevance, we should take a call on this matter, or the students, they should take a call on this matter. What is relevant for them? So if somebody is pursuing history, political science and physics, can also go for some skill-based courses and can make themselves employable to enter the job market. So there is a big push for the skill-based education, holistic and multidisciplinary, all the things I'm not going to mention. But this NEP is largely there for student-centric, because ABC is at the very center of the entire higher education reform. But CUCET is another, your university may not have, I don't know whether they have implemented, but CUCET is giving a lot of choices to the students when they're filling up the form. And that's why when they take the decisions are going to be informed. You see, the choice making in education is a very tricky issue, very challenging issue. What happens when we buy a piece of land and a laptop or a mobile, we can change, we can sell and buy another laptop, another mobile, another house or a land. In education, the choice is not that easy once we choose a particular course. And this flexibility to the students is very important, therefore, so that they should not or they need not remain trapped in the very institution or the department and the courses they have primarily admitted to. But this is one part. The second part is the freedom that we have been given now to offer a lot of new courses. I'm not going into the UG and the PG program, they have all very well discussed. We are all still discussing 3-year, 4-year. 1-year MA, 2-year MA. In JNU, we are still contesting about many issues. I'm not going to deal with some of these things. But one thing is very sure, that the students have been given the freedom. We have also been given the freedom, right, as you rightly mentioned. But this freedom has to be understood within the larger template of higher education qualification framework and various, even the PG framework that you mentioned. I have also got it, I have not read it completely now. Just recently released, as you mentioned. But the thing is that there is a template within which we have to exercise our freedom, right? So this is very, very important. So I'm skipping some of this regulation part, but the most important is that this regulation, what is trying to do, that there are a lot of fragments within the higher education system. Public, private, general, professional, skill and general based education. So the major purpose of this regulatory regime is to eliminate this fragment so that the system as a whole function which would allow for the mobility of the students across the border. That is very, very important. So the private, public, general, vocational, all these factors will therefore be somehow dealt with. For the accreditation, just one point, I'm not going into the details, that we are possibly moving towards a binary system. There's also a policy recommendation for clustering, phasing out of affiliated colleges. So this, if you connect it with the major diagnosis that NEP made in the 2019 document, that our higher education institutions are small and suboptimal utilization of the resources. So in order to tackle that, there is a possibility of clustering of the institution. They are talking about how it is going to be done. We have to see, and that will be very, very context specific. But we are moving towards binary accreditation because now quality is important. So you cannot survive in the system by offering a mediocre quality. Either you provide good quality or we have to leave the system.
Of course, a very well thought of theme today, that's National Education Policy 2020 and higher education, implementation, accomplishment and road ahead. As the earlier speakers also said that, the theme is very good. Definitely, when we framed our national education policy and implemented it last year, after 34 years, the mindset, somebody talked of the mindset. So lots of deliberations, lots of brainstorming was done, and this mindset, to some extent was changed after 34 years. So in this mindset, I should say not only students are involved, the whole society is involved, the whole system is involved, the whole structure is involved, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's human resource or whether stakeholders. So I think with lots of awareness, with lots of seminars, lots of conferences, lots of media, going into the media, whether it was through our Doordarshan or whether it was interviews given by various various administrative who are holding the positions in the university, administrative officers. We gave the press conferences and all. And after the awareness part, very meticulously, the board of studies in various departments was done, keeping in view whatever the earlier speaker said, especially, our keynote speaker. All these, key parameters were taken into consideration, and in the implementation part, of course, we had to see the local, our local needs, our, local infrastructure of the colleges. Of course, in one rod we cannot measure all the colleges. Some are the old colleges, some are midway, some are the colleges which have been established very recently. So all this we had to take into consideration, and after lots of deliberation, some of the colleges were taken for research where University of Kashmir is mentoring them. So all these small things were taken into consideration. Very meticulously the multidisciplinary component was given due priority, then entry exit, whatever there is. Then of course after implementation now comes the accomplishment and road ahead. A very well thought of theme that has been chosen today. I was seeing the different papers that are going to be presented. Very good papers. Some directly are related to our system, and I am sure that very good recommendations will come up for our Dean Academic Affairs, where he'll have to go back and think where we have to further you know correct ourselves, where we have to further implement anything, because definitely there will be some lacunae, I am sure of it, which will have to be taken care of. And I'm also happy about one thing, at least for our examination system. Our controller of examination for this new education policy batch, he issues the date sheet ahead when the students are admitted. At that time only the date sheet is being issued, and examinations are conducted well in time. So this is one of the, again, the positive point that we have achieved, but I'm sure much needs to be done. The skill component has to be taken care of, the technology component has to be taken care of. I think one by one we are moving ahead. Naturally, at the same time, everything cannot be achieved, but of course there will be improvements, and this particular 2-day national conference is one of its kind, where such lacunae will be identified, and we'll definitely like to plug them.
As Dean Academic Affairs of the University, I have few concerns and few experiences to share with this August gathering. Yes, University of Kashmir did take lead in implementation of the policy. Generally, whether we are doing things in individual capacity, taking leads, or as organizations when we take leads, it's not without any risk. So that component of risk was also involved to be the leaders in the country in implementation of this policy. But whether it's individual or organization, if we don't have that risk-taking capacity, the chances of that remarkable progress are limited. So, of course, it has to be a calculated risk. So, undoubtedly, University of Kashmir did take that risk to be the leader in implementation of this policy. As all of us know that any policy, it's an aspirational document, जिसमें कुछ तमन्नाएं इजहार की जाती हैं, कुछ आरज़ुएं इजहार की जाती हैं. So is true about this policy also. Many things are mentioned there in a very explicit manner, very clearly, and many things are to be decided by the implementers how to achieve this objective. Same is true about this policy also. But undoubtedly, as Professor Khurshid mentioned, there are many opportunities in this policy. So those aspects where things are not very clear, we have to think about it, we have to deliberate upon it, we have to seek help from the institutions all over the country or all over the world how to achieve those objectives. What we have achieved since its implementation, as I told, we have been the leaders. What we have achieved so far, one thing is there, a significant level of awareness has been generated among the faculty, not here only on campus. We have been collaborating with the colleges and even students also. But I think this is high time we should take our administrative staff into fold regarding this policy, regarding its implementation. Probably there we are behind. We have not taken our, which is an important component for functioning of an institution, that's our administrative staff. From, say, assistant registrar level onwards, or even down the line. We have to make these objectives very clear. Objectives of national education policy, these are to be made clear to each and every stakeholder of the university, be it whether they are on campus or outside the campus. So that's very essential. So one thing is this, what we have achieved, that's awareness of different stakeholders. Secondly is we established NEP Cell. That's another important achievement that we have made. And then framing of undergraduate curriculum, strictly in accordance with the regulations or with this NEP, wherein there is a provision of one major, there is provision of minor also, there is provision of two majors, so that has been implemented in latter and separate. In addition to that, majority of our students at undergraduate level, even now we are trying it, we are doing it at postgraduate level, they are registered for academic bank of credit. But to be honest and straightforward, the objective which is to be achieved by registering with this academic bank of credit, there is not any significant progress in that, because in many institutions all over the country, modalities to transfer credits through academic bank of credit, that's being worked out. Because there are two major concerns which we have been discussing with our colleagues here. Probably controller examination is also here. We have been discussing this thing, how to achieve this thing. Because once we earn some credits from any online platform or from any other university, how to transfer it to our account so that it can meet a part of our credit requirements. Two aspects are there. One is level. There are different levels you might have seen in NEP or the document which has been, the draft of the document, that is this postgraduate curriculum, credit framework for postgraduate curriculum, which has been released just a few days back. That's in the form of a draft. There are different levels of those courses. So how to make assessment of that level? अगर हमारे स्टूडेंट ने वो ऑब्टेन किया, कहीं से कुछ क्रेडिट्स अर्न किए, उसकी लेवल, is it an undergraduate course, is it an postgraduate course, is it a doctorate level course, उसको कैसे हम लेवल कैसे असेस की जाए? क्रेडिट वेटेज उसकी हो 4 क्रेडिट्स, हम मान लीजिए 4 क्रेडिट, but what is the level of those credits? And then another aspect is where we have to concentrate is the relevance. A person who is specializing in mathematics, whether it pertains to mathematics or its allied fields, so that these are the concerns which we have to address. And now, of course, university is gaining momentum. Meeting chahe kisi naviyat ki bhi ho, Honorable Vice Chancellor always makes mention of few things, that is skill development, entrepreneurship, incubation, etc. So that means we are gaining momentum in achieving the objectives. Professor Khurshid made a mention of latter and separate. Probably now we are trying to concentrate on these separates, how to enhance the capacity of those students whom we are educating under new educational policy. But definitely there are major challenges before us in implementation of the policy. One of the major challenges, which I start from myself, is the mindset. So especially people who are of my stage, who are at my level, who have been conditioned throughout their life in a particular that content-driven education of the students. Probably that mindset, a change in attitude, attitudinal change, that's very essential for successful implementation of the policy. Probably this may not be difficulty with our students or with our young faculty, but at least those who are completing their innings now, this is a problem. This will be an attitudinal change. We have to bring about an attitudinal change. And then pedagogical and evaluational issues. As I told you that it's outside that learning many things outside the classroom, especially for information of my students who are here. It's not only that, you won't be trained only that a well-defined curriculum is provided to you, you will stick to that, chahe aap usko classroom mein seekhinge ya outside classroom seekhinge. Outside university, through your experiences, you will learn some things. You will choose that trajectory at your choice, at your own pace. You are at liberty. That is one of the major features of this policy, that you will learn as per your wish, as per your academic and intellectual thirst. You have to learn and pick up whatever you want. But how to take it into our account, that's very essential. How to assess that outcome? Suppose we are expected to achieve certain outcome by training you, by sending you to work in an industry, by sending you to work in corporate sector, by sending you to work in judiciary. What we expect once you spend there, say 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or you earn 4 credits after that training, usko hum kaise assess kar le? How to make assessment of that thing? That's one of the major challenges for the academicians. Experiential learning या आउटकम को हम कैसे एसेस कर लें, दैट्स अ चैलेंज इन इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ द पॉलिसी. Then linking, there are different those curriculum frameworks. There is higher education curriculum framework, there is skill education framework, then there is school education curricular framework. So how to link all these things? That's also, of course, there are certain guidelines or vocation, how there will be a safe transition from vocational courses to general education, which was not earlier. So these are certain challenges. And then I would like humbly request all my colleagues who are sitting here, even students, kindly go through the draft of this postgraduate curriculum, which has been released very recently, 2-3 days it has been released, because many times it happens so, whether it was national education policy or there were drafts of different these curricular frameworks. Once they are kept in public domain, the biggest mistake that we do, we don't go through those drafts, we don't respond at appropriate time to those drafts. I think it is high time that at least to this document, all of us, even as students, because there's a major transformation once we implement national education policy at postgraduate level. So there will be major challenges. 4 saal, 4 year, to those students who have completed 4 years undergraduate program, they will be coming here. Again, those 4 years program will be from 2 streams. One will be honors stream, another will be from research. उनको हम यहाँ कैसे ट्रेन कर लें? 1 साल के अरसे में, एक मुख्तसर अरसे में 2 years program is reduced to 1 year program. Kindly go through that document and respond to that document. Directly, students can directly respond to University Grants Commission. With these brief words, I wish these 2 days deliberations will be academically fruitful. Thank you very much.
We all know that NEP 2020 is a document, it's a very concise document. Hopefully maximum people have gone through that document. It is probably some 60 to 67 page document, and half of it pertains to the lower education and some 33 or 35 pages pertain to the higher education only. Very concise document and very I may say that because the earlier, when we go to the earlier education policy of 1986, and a lot of water has flown down the country after that, and we have seen maximum changes, transformation in the educational scenario at the world level as well as the country level. So there was a requirement of policy document for the educational transformation in the country. And I am saying that we all know that India is the second largest network of higher education in the country, rather whole network with the lower and higher education after China. And at present we have almost 1,100 universities and 42,000 colleges existing in the country. And we know that there are issues in the higher education, whether from the quality point of view or the other issues from the human resource development of view or the human resource availability at the higher education level. We have because There are certain documents which have highlighted that almost 65% faculty is vacant at the higher education level in the country at present. So the document which has been prepared for national education policy, it's a concise document, and inshallah it will turn the education scenario in the country for a better tomorrow. We were all knowing that at the country level, our students, pass outs were also facing certain issues when they would go to the foreign countries for higher education. There was a dissymmetry between our education system and the education system of the certain developed countries at the global level. So that was one issue which was probably, it was felt that we should have a policy document or we should implement a new education policy at the country level. Most probably what I personally feel, I have slightly worked at the national level at some policy issues also. When we see the gross enrollment ratio in the country, gross enrollment ratio was always an issue at the country level. There were certain policies, earlier also certain policies to increase the gross enrollment ratio at the national level, but it could not happen. We have seen the erstwhile adult education where literates, new literates and illiterates were given the education of 3 hours, what we call in those terminologies, and it was just to increase the enrollment at the national level, but it also couldn't happen. There was again a policy at the national level which was called the Total Literacy Campaign, TLC we used to call it, and that was also aimed to enhance the gross enrollment ratio at the national level. But again, it didn't happen. When we see the gross enrollment ratio at the country level, we see it is just around 26% at present. And when we compare it to the West or Europe, where we see that the gross enrollment ratio is above 50. When you see US, it is 55, UK, it is, everywhere it is above, almost in the developed countries, it is 55 above. And when we see at our own country, now we are envisaging that by the NEP, implementation of the NEP 2020, we may have a gross enrollment ratio of 50% by 2035. So gross enrollment ratio was also an issue at the national level. When we go to the 12th plan of the University Grants Commission, that we see that University Grants Commission has slightly given certain thrust areas of the 12th plan, which was mostly to the access and excellence and equity component, because we have seen that a good number of there is because it is a country with vast geographical disparities. So we used to see that at certain level the higher education institutions were not available. So access and equity was a component where gender equity, where the access to the different people was not made available to the female folk. So under that, government also tried to increase the gross enrollment ratio at the national level, and inshallah, hopefully now by the implementation of NEP 2020, we expect that gross enrollment ratio is increased at the national level and also at the UT level of J&K. When it comes to the University of Kashmir, under the leadership of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, we all know that we were very few among the UTs in the states at the national level which implemented the National Education Policy 2020. And under her leadership only, I should not ignore the people who have contributed for it. Dean Academic Affairs has diligently worked on it. Our one more unsung hero, Mr. Professor Ashraf Sir, probably he is not here. He has also worked meticulously on it. I, as not as a registrar, but as the in charge of registration also and in charge of the admission at the UG level also, we also worked in it. And under the leadership of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, we were able to implement the National Education Policy at the college level in the UT of J&K, and we were very few, rather we were the first UT to, probably I don't exactly, but we were the first UT to implement the NEP 2020 at the UT level. And we are now in the third year examination of the students who have been enrolled under the National Education Policy at the state level, UT level. So I'm saying that University of Kashmir has tried to, under the guidance of our Higher Education Department and Higher Education Council of UT of Jammu and Kashmir, Honorable Vice Chancellor has given her extreme and diligent directions to the all stakeholders at the college, at the university, and at every level to facilitate the implementation of NEP 2020, and we are there with the implementation of it. And under her only leadership, we as Registrar, as Dean Academic Affairs, Dean Colleges, and all the people at the administration level, we try to extend full support to all the departments, all the stakeholders who will assist and who will facilitate the implementation of NEP 2020, and we will continue to do it under her leadership. With these words, I congratulate the NEP Cell who are doing a wonderful job at the UT, at the university level for holding this conference today. Thank you all.
At the very outset, when I came to this hall, when I look at the title of the today's conference, and it certainly appeals to me. The title is, that is the National Education Policy 2020, and it is implementation in higher education, and what are the accomplishments, and what is the road ahead. And this is the most relevant topic for to have a conference on this very important document, because the document is already ready, and the document has been now implemented. Now actually we will have to see whether we have been able to implement it properly or not, and what extra needs to be done to implement it. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that this National Education Policy 2020 is a very excellent document. And let me take this opportunity to do credit to the Government of India and the architects of this policy for framing up such a great policy, which is very, very comprehensive. And it covers the entire gamut of education, be it the school education or the higher education. And when you look at this document, and this is a very, very comprehensive document, which consists of, Registrar Sahab has rightly put it, around 64 or 60 pages. But these 60 pages actually cover the entire education and its entire gamut. And when I did look at this document, it has, very far-reaching amendments and the transformative reforms in the school education and the higher education. And I see the most important feature of this policy document has been that apart from ensuring that our students get the 21st century's knowledge and the skills, and it focuses also that it aims to, inculcate the pride among the students to be an Indian, a pride to be an Indian, and not only in the knowledge but also in intellect, the spirit. That is the most important, the feature of this policy. When you look at this policy, I said that it covers the entire gamut, be it the regulatory part of it, be it the institutional part of it, be it the funding part of it, be it the assessment, be it the curriculum, be it the teaching pedagogy, be it the assessment, be it the student. It covers the entire gamut. And I am quite confident that once we will implement this policy in its entirety, it is going to change the destiny of our nation. And I am also quite confident among the administrator, about the administrator, leaders, and they have the capacity and the vision to implement it in its right perspective. But here, I have certain points to make, that if we will have to, let me also take this opportunity to compliment the state government, the government of Union Territory, and the universities here in the Union Territory of J&K, because we were among the very few, in the country which have taken the lead in the implementation of this policy. And this policy is already implemented at the undergraduate level here in our university. And the credit goes to our Honorable Vice Chancellors and the Dean Academic Affairs and his team, that who have taken all the steps and all the measures to implement it in a very precise and in a very nice manner. But let me, raise certain flags here. That if we will have to really derive the due dividends from this very important policy, the most important part of it is the implementation. The document is already there. Everybody has read the documents. It has the far-reaching transformative reforms. But what matters now is the implementation of it. Implementation will be now very, very critical. Implementation will be very critical, and so far as the implementation is concerned, we will have to implement it in letter as well as in spirit. The most important is the spirit part of it. That is the most important part of it. Generally, we majorly focus on the letter, but we at times ignore the spirit. But the spirit is the fundamental part of any policy. The second very important is implement the policy in totality. Because this policy doesn't have only the multidisciplinary education. Associated with the multidisciplinary education, it has many, many other aspects which will actually make these policies successful. Unless and until we implement all other measures, the policy may not be able to derive the due dividends. And the other very important is that we will have to seek the active participation and commitment of actually those who have to actually implement it at the ground. That is the most important part of it. As a student of management, we generally see that always we have the great policies, but when it comes to implementing, because we have not been able to sell the change among the people who have to actually implement it. And that is the most important challenge for the implementers, to seek the commitment and the total dedication of those who have to actually, the faculty members and the students. The other very important part of it would be that once you have implemented, unless and until you monitor its implementation on regular basis, at least in the initial few years, monitoring will be all the more important. Because this is altogether something very new. And unless and until we monitor it continuously, at least in the first cycle, and then there may be certain issues. And our university, is, seized of these issues, and our Dean Academic Affairs must be regularly monitoring about this. And then the last and the most important is, that is about, then at the end of a certain period, we will have to assess and review whether this policy has achieved the targets, the goals that have been set for it.